Right guys, this video is going to show you how to make yourself a model in Google Sketchup of your case for your electronics product. In this one I'm just doing a MP3 speaker box, but you could apply this to any case you're designing. You obviously just got to add in different components and things as to whatever you're using. Right, first things first then, here's one I did earlier. For you to get a kind of decent grade for this bit of work, I'm expecting a model of this standard, so all components that you'll be using modelled, so you've got the battery, circuit board, any LEDs, if you had switches, I don't want to see switches, speakers. I actually want the lid or the panel that you would remove to gain access to be movable separately, so I can go and see what it looks like sort of closed up. So we'll get pictures of it closed up and pictures of it with the lid off, so you're actually building a hollow model, can't just be a box. It needs to be coloured as well, and it needs to be all in the right proportions to the right size. So I'll show you how to do all this stuff over this video. I suggest you watch a bit of the video, do that kind of step for your project whilst the video is paused, then watch a bit more and take it in stages really. Right, okay, first things first then, I'm just going to close Sketchup and just ignore all this stuff. Right, now you'll have a different icon because you've got an older version, but I think you're on Sketchup 6 or something. My icon looks like that. Load up Sketchup, and just on here, if you have a different screen, if it looks like this, click choose template. Your screen will probably look more like that, and I want you to choose millimeters, architectural design millimeters template, and then just click start using SketchUp. I'm just going to minimize this video recording. Alright, by default you'll get this kind of space here. Just to give you a little, before we even start drawing anything, I'm just going to show you how to maneuver around in space in SketchUp. If you click and hold the middle mouse button on, so that's the scroll wheel, click it down and just move the mouse around, you can zoom, sort of not zoom, but you can sort of rotate around the view. If you use the scroll wheel on the mouse, you can zoom in and out. If you hold down shift on your keyboard and click the mouse button in, you can pan left and right, up and down. So really that's your easiest way of maneuvering. Okay. These three lines here represent the different axes, so that'd be the x-axis, y-axis and z-axis, because this is three-dimensional. And they put a random 2D picture of a woman there, just to give you an idea of scale, so that's like typical human size. So obviously if you draw your box and your little woman's like the size of a borrower, you know, little people compared to your box, you've probably done something wrong. So use that as a gauge and then you can delete it later. One thing you won't have by default, I'll just show you this, under Toolbars, your toolbar will look like this to start with. I highly recommend you go View, Toolbars and select the large tool set. This gives you a load more tools down the side that we're actually going to use today in this video. The other thing I recommend you do is under camera, yours will probably be set to parallel projection. I would change your camera to perspective. It just makes it a lot easier to line things up, so just trust me on that one. So that's initial setup. First thing we're going to do then is start kind of drawing the box. So using your clicking the mouse button in and rotating, I suggest we start with a kind of top-down layout. So rotate so you're roughly looking down on top of the woman like that, and then maybe zoom in a bit. And we're going to draw a box now. So you've got your box tool. Obviously if you had a circle case, maybe start with a circle. I'll show you how to combine shapes in a minute as well. So get the box, and before I start drawing I just want you to, when I draw, keep an eye on this box down here that says dimensions. If you click and drag, you can see it actually changes the dimensions in that box. Now you can either try and guess it, or what's really cool, if I just do it again, if you click to start a box but don't click again to place, instead type on your keyboard the size you want as follows. So if I wanted a box that was 200 by 100, I would type 200 and then put a comma and then 100. That gives you your two dimensions. Just hit enter and that will automatically draw you a rectangle that's 200 by 100. If you want to confirm that, you've got this dimension tool here. I suggest you grab that and then just click on the side, drag out. See, we've proven that one's 100mm, that one's 200. Now you should know your sizes or your rough sizes from the paper model you made, so use that as a starting point. Right, if I sort of zoom out a bit and maybe rotate my view, I can see that's great. I've got a rectangle, but it's just a two-dimensional shape at the moment. Now the trick in SketchUp to make things 3D is you've got this little tool here called push or pull. Get that, and it's almost as easy as just click and drag. Okay. Again, if you wanted to make it an actual size, just edit, undo. If you just click once and then type in the height you want, so say I wanted my box 100 tall, type 100, that'll make that box exactly 200 by 100 by 100 tall. Again, I can put my dimensions on there, but it'll be this side now, like so, and I can prove I've got a box that's 200, 100, 100. Right, it's probably time to get rid of that stupid woman now. That wasn't a sexist comment, by the way, so I just didn't want the woman in the picture there. I'm not saying women are stupid. What anyone gets on their high horse. Right, ignore what I did there, that wasn't right. Okay, so that's great, we've got a cube. That's not really an electronics box. If you just submit that to me, you're going to get an F grade because you've just made a box, really, not an electronic product. So we need to try and turn this into something that resembles a case now. What I suggest you do is start by hollowing out the box, and there's a very useful tool for that, this one called Offset. If you click that and just click on the top panel, and can you see, without clicking again, if I drag I get this kind of border effect. Now if you're using plywood, you'll remember the wood is 4mm thick, so I suggest you hit 4 on the keypad, press enter, and you've made a kind of border there. Right, we're now going to use our push and pull tool again, and we're going to pull that down. So click once, just move your mouse. Now, we don't want it to go right to the bottom, or come out the other side. We want it to go almost to the bottom, but 4mm less, because we want to have a floor to our box, like you would do in real life. So if our total height was 100, if I take 4 off of 100, that leaves 96. If I type 96 as my depth, and now just have a look around by scrolling, I can see I've made a box that's got walls that are 4mm thick, bottom that must be 4mm thick, so on and so forth. Alright. If you want to do all the details, this is quite good if you've got time, maybe get the line tool, this one over here, and just draw in where the joins would go. So if you would split your box like this, remember we might have talked about in the past how the panels fit together. It's a good way of illustrating that and getting yourself some extra marks. Nope, that was wrong. If ever you make a mistake, by the way, either go edit, undo, or you can just do Control Z on the keyboard. It does the same thing. There you go. Right, so I can now see how my box is kind of split, which is quite useful. You may even decide to do the same along here to show the base, but I'll leave it up to you how much detail you want to do. Right. Now obviously the next step is to start perhaps adding some extra details in, so we're going to need some holes for components to go through. Let's just imagine this design had a LED, for instance. If you're doing the MP3 speaker, it doesn't have an LED, but because this is a generic video, if you did have a hole in there, go and get yourself, say, the circle tool on the left. Whichever panel you want to draw it on, move your mouse over, and let's just say I want to put a circle here, drag it out. Now again, before I click, if I look at my radius box down here, I can type in the radius. So if I know an LED is 5mm diameter, well, radius is half of diameter, so half of 5 is 2.5, so I would type 2.5. I've got myself a perfect dimensioned hole. Well, I say a hole, it's just a circle at the moment. I now need to make that a hole, so I get my push and pull tool and just drag it. Now, if you drag too far, you actually extended a solid object out here. We want to only drag as far as this wall here, and you see if I, while clicking and holding my mouse, if I hover, see that little red square up here, that means make the hole as far as that face. Okay, and that's made my hole go all the way through. That'll work for any shape, by the way, absolutely anything. If you wanted to have some random cool cutout, for instance, like, I don't know, let's get the squiggle tool, just do some random shape like that. I can actually extrude that in the same way. Okay, that looks a bit naff and it won't suit everyone's project, so I'm just going to delete that, or do Control-Z to go back. Right, I think it's time to start placing some components and things in now. So that is actually quite an easy thing to do. You can kind of cheat from this. If you're a total badass, you can make your own components, but that takes a lot of time. Instead, I know how lazy you lot are, so why don't you go and steal them off the internet? So if you click on this little tab here that says Get Models with a yellow arrow, as long as the internet's connected, it will load up a website. Just type in what you're searching for. So I'm just going to type in battery. I'm going to have a hunt through. There are literally pages and pages of models that people have made. You may have to do a bit of trial and error because some of them are not actually sized correctly. I know this one, the 3AA battery box we commonly use, and is actually already at the exact size. So if we click on that and then click download model, load it directly into Sketchup, yes. Alright, and you've now got a ready-made battery that you can start positioning. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about moving objects around. I'm going to decide on this version of my box, I want my battery screwed to this panel here. Now we've got two problems. First, it's in the wrong place. Secondly, it's not at the right angle. So my first job is I'm going to rotate it. Now you've got these tools up here, rotate, move. If I click rotate, it's a bit confusing, this tool at first. If you see, without clicking, if you hover the mouse, you get this weird protractor image and it sort of changes its orientation. Now imagine I put a skewer straight through the middle of that. I'd want to spin it around that skewer 90 degrees to the left if it was going to fit on here. So I want to organise my protractor so it's on the face where I put the skewer. Click once. Now I can see my protractor is just moving around that face. If I now move my mouse outwards a bit and click again, I'm now rotating around an imaginary spike through there. Okay. If you're careful with the mouse, you'll notice, I don't know if you can just see it there, it just snaps to 90 degrees. And can you say it also says on blue axis? That way I know I've moved exactly 90. So try and be accurate with what you do. Right, so it's rotated at the right angle. It's just in the wrong place now. So I'm going to go and get my move tool, and I'm going to, well, I'm going to move it, but I need to explain to you how the move tool works. It basically moves in whatever view you're looking at. So if I wanted to move it from here across to there, I actually need to be looking at it more or less top down. Okay, so adjust view by holding the middle mouse button in, and just click and drag. Right, now that's moved it kind of from a top down viewpoint. As you can see, it's kind of half in and half out of the object. So now I want to bring it up a bit, but I now need to be looking at it mostly front on. Okay, it takes a bit getting used to this. There we go. So that's now positioned more high, at the right height. And the only problem is it's a little bit far away from the edge here. So I'm just going to zoom in again from above because I'm moving in this direction. I'm just going to move it roughly close. This doesn't have to be mega perfect, just kind of put your battery where you imagine it will go. Okay, when you're done, just get the arrow tool. Alright, and that's sorted. Now, if you're dead set on something and you don't want to change this box at all, for instance, if you really like how that is configured and you don't want it moved accidentally, you can just select it with the arrow tool, right click, and go lock. If you do that, there ain't nothing you can do that's going to move it. Okay, the only way to do it, to move it again now, is to select it, right click, unlock the thing. You can actually lock your entire box as well if you want, but I wouldn't recommend doing that until the end because you may want to change the size of some things. Right, I'm going to put in a kind of battery panel now to keep the battery separate from my main circuit board area. So easy way to do that. Again, for drawing now, I recommend I'm going to draw a rectangle here and pull it up out of the page. I'll just show you. I wouldn't try and draw your rectangle in this view. If you see what happens, you see what it's actually done, it's drawn it at an angle just because my view was at an angle. Instead, if you want to draw it as a two-dimensional rectangle, you need to be looking at it almost two-dimensionally. So I reckon my rectangle is going to go about here, like so. I know it needs to be 4 mm thick. Now I'm going to get my dimension tool and just click on the two circles there, and I can see at the moment my line is 5.6 mm. Alright, So if I get the arrow tool, just ignore that actually. We'll leave it at that and I'll make it thinner in a minute. I'm going to push and I'm going to pull that up out of the page now, so let's get my pull tool. I'm going to pull that upwards. I could go right up to the edge there, but I'm actually going to deliberately make it a bit lower. My plan is that I would explain in my annotation that my wires for my battery will go over that little shelf there, even when the lid's onto my main circuit board here. Okay, I noticed that this is still a bit wide, so I'm just going to grab that panel now and just pull it in until it reads 4mm. Accuracy is important here, I will be checking all this stuff. Right, it's now really down to you to place a few more components, so I'll just kind of do this dead quick. So I'm going to let's get a circuit board maybe, just to simulate yours. You can pick any old board. This one looks a bit like the one you've made. It's sort of square, similar shape. Problem is it's a bit too big. What we can do, however, is resize it. I can't remember the size of the MP3 speaker board or your own boards, but if you get your dimension tool, for instance, and click on a corner and do the same. Sorry, and here maybe. Right, so we know that that is 101 by 76.2. We've got a very handy tool here called the scale tool. You click that, click on here. Not like adjusting a text box in Word. If you grab the corners, you can change the size of your object, and you can actually change it proportionately. You can make it wider or skinnier or whatever like that. Okay. So here we go. So just adjust your circuit board until it's the right sort of size that you need, and then obviously what you want to do is move it into position. So get your move tool, move it wherever you want it. Again, the same deal. That's a bit low, so I'm going to kind of look at it from here and raise it up a bit. Now, a little problem you might notice, sometimes you'll get this issue where you can't see what you're doing because there's like a wall in the way, and you can't select the object either. You can still actually select the object, you just can't see it. So a good temporary thing to do, it's a good time to show you this, is go and get the paint bucket if that occurs, and maybe you get this little window up here, choose a translucent colour, maybe just paint it glass coloured. You have to paint the inside and outside panels to be able to see all the way through it. Then you can actually see the object you're moving while you move it, and you can see it was actually quite a way off. Okay. Obviously you can then change the colours back afterwards. So perhaps position your circuit board like that, and done. Okay. Right. I'm just going to pause the video for a second, but it will appear like I have come back immediately. Right, as if by magic I'm back. Whilst that appeared to be merely a second in your time, that was actually long enough for me to have an in-depth conversation with my wife. So, anyway, right. I'm going to show you another cool trick, which is how you can actually draw sort of wires along a path. Now, for your MP3 project, if that's what you're making, you could be year 11 and not doing that at all, but you're going to have a stereo jack. Stereo jack. That's the little socket you can plug in. This is a good thing to do actually. If I import that, download the model, you'll find where some people on the internet are not particularly bright, they make things huge. You see the size of this? And obviously you want that model, you just don't want it to be the size of a skyscraper, so you'll have to rescale it. So get your scale tool, shrink it down. You may have to do this several times until it's in the right ballpark. And again, you may have to move it a couple of times so it doesn't disappear off the screen. Even so, it's still absolutely massive. You can either rescale it, or you can just go and look for someone on the internet that made a model that was actually the right size. Okay, but either way, just be aware that that does happen. All the models that are out there are just made by people for free, so you can't really moan at them too much. Go like that. Alright, I'm going to show you how to make a kind of, well, let's just rotate this quick. So again, same deal with the rotate tool. I want to be looking at the side I want to rotate. It's a bit hard to do actually. There we go. Alright, Now let's see, I wanted to make a kind of cable joining that up to the box. This is quite a tricky process, but it's quite clever when it pays off. Right, first thing I'd do is go and get we've got to draw our cable as a path. Okay, so I would get, say, the arc tool, and you want to do it coming exactly out of the centre of that. So wait until the mouse snaps to the centre of there. Maybe zoom out a bit, pan by holding down shift, maybe rotate the view so you're looking at it from above. And let's just draw kind of I'm just going to click and draw a kind of semi-arc like that. Okay, now that is not all of my wire, so I'm just going to finish off doing my whole wire. So I'm going to click and click again. That looks pretty cool. Okay, you want nice flowing together shapes, like that maybe. And now obviously I want my wire to go into my box somewhere, so let's click on here again. You can actually pass through if you wanted. I could join it to the circuit board, which is quite cool. Like that. So I've got a wire that kind of goes in several stages. I'm not actually happy about that last bit, so I just did Control Z. Anyway, my point is, so just basically get your wire looking how you like as a path. Obviously that's not a solid object now. Right, your next job is you're going to draw the shape that you want to follow all along that path, and that's just going to be a circle. So I'm going to get my circle tool. Again, look at it in the direction you want to be, and draw my circle on the end of the wire I drew, and just draw it to the same size as that hole. That's where the wire would fit. Now here's the really cool tool, and this is why you needed the extended tool set. This one here called Follow Me. You want to kind of click and drag on the circle you just drew, and you'll have to kind of be ambidextrous and zoom out and hold down shift and the mouse wheel, but basically you're going to kind of pull that along the pathway. Okay, there we go. So you can do that with anything. You can take a shape and you can pull it along a path. For those of you that are aiming for a really high level, it'd be nice of you to map out where all your wires are going to go. So wires for external components. If I had time on this video, I would show the wires coming over here from the battery onto the circuit board, maybe wires coming off my speaker when I put it on, so on and so forth. Alright, so it's down to you. You've got to put all your other components in, make holes for them. So if you had a speaker here, again, make sure you do it to the right size. So let's put speaker on, and I know the speakers are 60 diameter, so in my box I want 30 for radius. Make it as a hole like so, by pulling it with the pull tool. Pull it to that face there. Okay, you could go get a speaker off the internet, copy and paste it in, whatever. All I want you to do is make sure your lid, or your panel that would be removed to gain access, is drawn separately. So just to show you what I'll do quickly and end the video, because this is getting very long, draw yourself a rectangle, but obviously if your box is 200 by 100, your lid needs to be 200 by 100. So again, drag it out and then just type 200, 100. We know our lid needs to be 4 tall, so we'll pull it up. So I'll just do it again, get the pull tool, but type in 4. There we go. We kind of made our lid now, and all I would do now is, if you select everything that makes up your lid and only the lid, so drag a box around it like that, you can right click on it and make it a component, so call it lid for instance. Alright, that is now on one entity. Alright, and you can just move it as one very easily and it won't make any changes. And if you wanted to, you could actually copy and paste it because it's now a component. So you can kind of now just use the move tool, move your lid into a position that will allow you to see what's going on inside your box, but still convince me as your teacher that that panel is designed to fit. There we go, onto the top of it. Alright, now I really want you to do every level of detail to get a good grade. I want you to put in, if you're going to make little shelves for instance, like this, where you would screw into, do that. The way I suggest do that is maybe draw a little rectangle, just draw a line across. You'll find it fills in the whole top, but that's easy to get rid of. Just click the bit you didn't want and press delete, There we go. Obviously I'd need to pull that down 4mm, so type 4. Okay. I'd like you to make the screw holes. I would like you to use the paint tool and paint everything with the correct colours. So if you're going to make a red box, okay, just click all your panels and colour them red. Essentially, I'm looking for a totally complete model. The more time you put into this, the better. Once you've finished it, I'm not saying this is finished because we need to move on. I want you to take screenshots of it in different views. So I want you to take a screenshot of it with the lid off, screenshot with the lid on, screenshot from the front, from the bottom maybe, from a kind of 3D view, maybe a close-up of the insides. I want you to take maybe 5 or 6 screenshots. Rather than pressing print screen and copy and paste, the best way to do it is go File, Export, 2D Graphic, select JPEG, and so save this as, let's call this 3D view, click Export, and what that'll do is that'll make you an actual JPEG. There we go, it's just saved on my desktop. You don't have to bother doing any of the cropping. It's a nice small file, and that you can just take and copy it and paste it into Word. So for instance, my preferred way of doing that would be to use PowerPoint maybe. It's dead easy to edit it. Put your picture into PowerPoint, and then if you double click your picture or go to the format menu, nice trick is to go to colour, set transparent colour, and click on the grey. Okay, and that gives you a dead nice picture. Right, okay, and then just present all of your pictures on one page, all your different views, put a title on it, 3D CAD model of my project, and then I'd like you to annotate it with text boxes and explain what everything is. So label the parts, label all your design ideas, label little bits of wood like that you put in, etc. Okay, basically show off what you can do. There are thousands of other things you can do with this here program. It's really, really powerful. I'm just sort of touching the surface. There's text here, there's all sorts. Anything really intricate you want to do, talk to me. If you've got a shape that isn't a box, my last final thing is to remind you, look, you can make more complex shapes out of others. So maybe get a square and a circle, combine them. Don't forget you could put like an arc here, for instance. I'm not saying anyone's going to have a shape like that, well, whatever, but you can then create this as one whole shape as well, and if you wanted it to be as one, you just delete the lines that you don't want, like this. You get the idea. Right, I'm going to shut up talking now because you need time to experiment, but all I'm saying is, well, experiment really. The more you experiment, the more you will learn. That's how to do it. Okay, there we go.